Thank you very much, Paul. Now, after all that excitement, you can keep quiet. Except for our next two guests. We now have a singer and an accompanist that have been here for the last 2 years at the hospice. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it last year and we missed them terribly. So please welcome Michael and Colette Grant. She's only here for the free water.
I always do this every year. We're running late, so I won't tell you many stories. We're nearly lifers. We started here in the year 2000, so this is the year 20, except for last year. And that probably explains why they give me a badge to remind me of my name, you know, because I've got 3 sets of glasses now, reading, computer, and fairy focals. Anybody got fairy focals? They're cursed. I can't get my head around that. Anyway, Colette is going to sing a song nearly as old as herself. It comes from 1926, Bill from Showboat, and it was, we think, the song she sang the first time that we were here in the year 2000. And I was just looking at Andrew here. I got an American parcel too, and it was a revolting. Do you remember the ties? And there was an elastic band. You didn't make the tie, and you could pull it and bang it up against your chin. Okay, here we go.
so much for that in life. That was a wonderful opening to the second half. Thank you. Now we come to our speeches for the second half. Our first speaker is going to tell the story of her growing up. And I'm fascinated by the title because this is what she did when she was growing up. Swimming with dead dogs. Please welcome Esther Penny.
Thank you, Linda. Ladies and gentlemen, I was born on the south bank of the Grand Canal near Inchicore. I don't know if you know Inchicore or the Grand Canal, but they were the two pillars of the lives of the children growing up in my era. Where I lived in Old Bluebell, there were no shops, no buses, no taxis, nothing. The milkman came and the bedman came, that was all. We were self-sufficient to a great extent. We, in our time, we had 300 hens, so we supplied the neighbourhood with chickens and eggs, and I had to butter eggs when they were hot. Then they were just out of the hen, you know, because some people were very fussy. But my mother and I, twice a week, walked down the canal to Inchicore, which was a metropolis. We had Labyrinth the outfitters. This was where my mother, twice a year, bought a pair of nylon stockings. Some were tan, by Glen Abbey, packed in their old cardboard box for 7.11. So where would you get it? We have O'Brien's the butcher's there, Cole's the chemist, the Inchicore cinema, where I was quartered from the time I was 13 to 17. He booked a ticket in the back row every Sunday night. From 13 years to 17 years old, and he never once put his arm around me. There was also the Oblate Church, which was, it's a beautiful building, still is there, of course, stand forever. I was a chorister there for all my teen years, and it's where I learned to say my prayers in Latin. So I think I'm a bit ahead of others when it comes to getting into heaven. The canal was wonderful. It was the playground of children of my era, all through the summer, dawn to dusk. It wasn't dangerous. We never had a tragedy, thank goodness. Always warnings, of course. But there was a lovely little shallow bank where we sank into it, learned to paddle, and caught pinguins and gudgeon. Put them into 2-pound jars with a lid on. Tight. Wondered why they were all dead next day. Not realising that even fish needed oxygen and food. How bad were we? But sometimes when we were paddling, we'd hear a shout, "Dog! Dead dog!" And we'd scramble out. It was quite often. A farmer got tired of his dog back in the farm and just threw it into the canal. It was heartless. When I think of those dogs today and the labour they might have done, I just think they're like soldiers, warriors on the road to Valhalla, down through Dublin Bay to meet their Viking ancestors. It was lovely. We did learn to swim. The girls always paddled in the low part, but the boys were more adventurous. And I don't know if you know the big chambers between the locks. Yeah. They took to diving in there. Oh my goodness, how brave they were. It was wonderful. That went on for the whole summer, and we were never called in except last thing for dinner. We were always worried about the dogs, though, the effluent flowing from them as they went by. But why did we worry? In those years, I know my mother, when she was pregnant with her children, she was a dab hand at making raw egg mayonnaise, which she loved, and all sorts of things like that, and the odd woodbine, which she favoured. School was to the Robin Hood School. I don't know if anyone knows Robin Hood. Well, it was always only called Robin Hood. I know it has an official Irish name. I never learned it. And I never really wanted to because it was a school of hard knocks, as all schools were in those days. Stuff was beaten into you and beaten out of you just as fast. But one friend of our family, a poor boy who was ceaselessly beaten by the teachers, he kicked a teacher one day. And he took to his heels and didn't stop running until he reached England. But that is where he became a very famous goalkeeper. I won't name names. Some of his cousins might be there. We had no secondary school or university in those days because education was not free. Irish, or learning of Irish stopped at beginning school. No more. I was lucky to have an aunt who sponsored me to a private business school in Clondalkin. A small business school, but very, very good. I had to pass an exam to get into it. I did it very well and got a great job out of it in Reg Armstrong's in Ringsend. You know it all.
Yeah.
That was a firm that built cars and motorcycles, German vehicles. I did very well there, and I was just getting ready to train for the German office to go to Germany, but romance started in my life. I mean, we had our time with the swimming with the dead dogs. I never went on to swimming with sharks. They say it could cost an arm and a leg. Anyway, I had a boyfriend at 17, and he said, after a few months going with me, he said, would I like to get married and move to Birmingham? I said, no, that's too small. I'd rather leave me money for that. And the next fellow wanted to, I don't know, he just wanted to grab you and run. But the next fellow offered me a marriage and a trip to a life in Australia. And I wouldn't take that either. But the third one, he was lucky. What did he do? Holding me for a few minutes. Got down on one knee and quoted Shakespeare to me. Now I'm more lovely than his sons today. That's what I did. I gave him the complete works in return. That's just a few snippets from my life. Second chapter next year.
Thank you very much, Esther, for sharing your story, and I'm glad there was so much more than death does. Our next speaker is somebody that we're very familiar with in the hospice. We've been regaling up with the stories of Dublin, and I'm convinced that when they build the Cleary's Portal in Dublin, that there's going to be a statue to him in a short notice. With a speech entitled "A Misunderstood Woman," please welcome Michael Cabot.
My story tonight begins when I was a young boy. And on the road that I grew up on as a young boy, there was an elderly woman who lived by herself. And she was very cranky. She was always giving out to the boys. Tie up your end, the pole end. Get that ball out of here. And she was always dressed in black. and she used to sweep the footpath outside her house. And for those reasons, we used to call her the Wicked Witch from the Wizard of Oz. One day I was standing at the bus stop, and she was on the queue. And when I sat down, she sat down beside me. And she addressed me by my name. And she told me that her name was Esther. I was quite nervous, because I thought she was going to berate me to say, "Are you one of the boys who called me the Wicked Witch?" But she had a different tone for her voice. She had a pleasant tone. And I wasn't really up close to her up to that point. And she had a friendly face and kind type of eyes. She said, "How are you getting on at school?" And she would say, "Have they told you about the pyramids in Egypt?" And after that, she used to stop and talk to me at our garden gate. And she'd talk about the explorers like Christopher Columbus. And she'd say, "Why do they call the West Indies the West Indies?" So the conversations were always stimulating. And as I moved into my teens, she told me more about herself. She said she was born in what is now modern-day Poland, but at the time it was part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. She had 4 siblings, but they all died shortly after birth. And she said this had taken an enormous toll on her mother, so much so that all the responsibilities of life fell on her father's shoulders. 3 of them made their way across Europe. The plan was to go to America. And they arrived in Liverpool. Instead of going to America, they got the boat to Dublin. She said she was born into the Jewish faith, but her father arranged for the 3 of them to be converted into the Catholic religion. And he did that for one reason, and one reason only, was that as the majority of the population were Catholic, he didn't want her to stand out as being different. He told me her father worked in the right trade, literally in the right trade. And he used to leave the house at 7 in the morning, come back at 7 at night, 5 days a week, work half day Saturday. And he built up a good business there. He was 15 years older than her mother, and he knew that he would pass away first. So he wanted to make arrangements as much as he could. So he put all the property, including the house, into a trust, because he didn't want to leave it to his wife, because he knew there were too many sharks out there who would trick her out. He arranged with the undertaker to take care of all the burials. She had a great recall of events. She remembered in 1905 when King Edward VII and his wife, Queen Alexandra, came to Kingstown, which is now Bulgaria. And she was able to recall it as it was yesterday. And she knew exactly what she was wearing, the colour of her blouse, the jacket, the length of her skirt and shoes. She lived through 1913, 1916, War of Independence, First World War, Civil War, Second. So our conversations, as I say, were always stimulating. And one day she showed me the photograph of herself when she was a young woman. And it was a very striking photograph. And even though she was posing, it was a confident pose. It was a confident woman. And as I was looking at it, she said to me, "Are you impressed?" And I said, "Very much so." And she took the photograph, put it into the faded brown envelope, and said, "I want you to have that." She told me that she had boyfriends, but in a lot of the cases, her mother, their mothers broke up the relationship. They always considered her different. When I was in my early 20s, I went to America. And my own mother wrote me to say that Hester had passed away. When I came back 2 years later, I looked up the old newspapers to see the obituary, but there was no obituary in the paper. So I went along to the parish priest, and he told me she was buried in Glasgow Cemetery. I went down to the cemetery, spoke to the woman in the office, and I said, "I wonder, can you help me?" and explained the decision to her. She was very helpful. She went out of her way to be helpful. And that is not surprising, because when I was a young man, women found me very charming. She said the way this works, she says, there's all letters on the back wall. You go along to the back wall, say the number in the grave is GH400. You go along to GH, put your back to it, and then walk forward. I went down and saw the grave. It said Feldman. Isaac, born, died. and his loving wife, Miriam, and their wonderful daughter, Esther. I had to know more about what happened that day. I went to the undertaker and I asked him, did he remember? Oh, he said, I remember that very well, he says. There's something very distinctive about that funeral. He says, in this line of work, you see an awful lot of things. You can have large crowds, medium-sized crowds, small crowds. There are even times when there are no mourners there at all. But on this particular day, it was just himself, the driver, and the parish priest were in the hearse. There were no following cars. And as the grave came into view, initially there were no mourners there. But once the coffin was taken out of the hearse, he said, 3 men appeared from nowhere. It was as if they were hiding behind trees. They were all in their 70s. They didn't know each other, didn't talk to each other. And when the priest gave his final blessing, they dispersed in 3 different directions. And the driver was saying on the way back, it appeared as if they faded into the landscape. I always wondered why Esther spoke to me that day on the bus, and why she spoke to me at her garden gate. She didn't speak to any of the other children. I don't think it was a case of a son she never had. I think it's something that's inside us all as human beings. We all seem to be driven towards a particular type of person. I won't use the word attracted because that has a romantic connotation. Some people say that all human life is reflected in the school playground. You ever observe children playing in the schoolground, and you might have 4 or 5 7-year-old girls playing there, and another 4 or 5 there, and so on. Why does the 7-year-old girl need to play in that group and doesn't play in the other group? She is working from instincts. She's working from her heart. You may have a good friend here and another good friend over here, and you can introduce the 2 of them. But a lot of the times, they do not become good friends. They're mannerly and friendly to each other. Have you ever asked yourself, why is such a person a good friend of yours? What is there? It's hard to explain. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't smell it. It's mercurial. The 16th century philosopher, French philosopher Montaigne, did it very well for me when he was asked to explain why that person there was his good friend. And after much deliberation, he said, because it was him, because it was me. So in my case, it was because it was Esther, because it was me. In the Irish Independent on Mondays, there's a health supplement. There's a health supplement in the Irish Times on Tuesday. And people write in for all kinds of issues, physical, mental, emotional. Somebody might write in and say he has 6 toes, but I don't bother reading those. But occasionally you might see a heading, are you in a rut? And the advice given is that you take a blank sheet of paper and you list down all the positive things in your life. So this is the question I put to you all here this evening. If you had a blank sheet of paper and you were asked to list down all the positive things in your life, on that list, would you put down the fact that you have friends? In short, do you appreciate your friends? The day after I spoke to the undertaker all those years ago, I went back to the grave for a second and a final time. This time I brought with me a small brush, small spade, a scoop, a bottle of water, and a cloth. I tidied up the grave. And just as I was leaving, I was looking at the headstone. And I said to myself that if I had permission, I would like to be able to inscribe my own words on the headstone. So as you read down, and it said their wonderful daughter, Esther, in brackets, I would have inscribed the words, a misunderstood woman.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I think if any of us had that blank sheet of paper and we write down the positives in our lives, we would be coming here to listen to Michael every year. Thank you. Our next speaker now is a man that I've heard speaking many, many times at Weekly Toastmasters, and he always regains his great stories. He spoke a few times in hospice as well, and I'm sure he'll have a great story for us tonight. With a speech entitled, "Put Your Talk, Please Welcome Him."
The best thing about being single is that you're not married. That's what my psychoanalyst said to me on his 30th wedding anniversary in front of his wife, now ex-wife. Madam Chair, fellow singletons, and those of you who are in relationships that are committed. No matter what your marital status is, there are always advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantages of being single are that sometimes you're lonely. Say ah. Sometimes you're sad. And sometimes the future appears to be bleak.
On the other hand, the disadvantages of being married are that you're always lonely. You're always sad. And the future is always bleak. I attended my psychoanalyst for years at €200 an hour because I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be understood. I wanted to resolve the problems of my life and be broke at the same time. And then one day, I had these great fears that I had to get off my chest. I told him I was afraid to speak in public and chat at women, not at the same time. Then he gave me the response that was to turn out to be the straw that would break the psychoanalytic couch. He replied, hello? Are you away? Totally snored. I stood up, tippy-toed out the door, and decided to figure it out for myself. Since he wasn't listening to me, I started listening to him. Now, for those of you who are married or in relationships that are committed, you're probably not going to understand the rest of this speech. So don't chill out, just chillax. However, for those of you who are single, you probably will. If you live alone like me, there are 3 types of talk available to us. There's self-talk, there's inner talk, and if you're lucky enough, the most important talk of all, no talk. Let me explain. Self-talk is self-explanatory. It's talking aloud to yourself. Take these scenarios. A man wakes up in the morning, walks over to a scantily clad wardrobe, sniffs his shirt he's worn for the past 3 days and says, Asher, couldn't I get another day or 2 out of that? A woman wakes up, walks over to a well-organized wardrobe and says, "Inny, meeny, miny, mo, which one of you gorgeous outfits today will make me glow?" But then talk is more intrusive. It wrecks your head, no matter who you are. Like this scenario. You come home late on a Friday night. You hang your clothes on the bedroom floor. You wake up the following morning to discover your clothes are still on the floor. Then this new dialogue begins. Who left those clothes there? I do. Do you have a problem with that? Actually, I do. I think it's very unnecessary and very untidy, especially when you have a scantily clad wardrobe a few feet away. I'll get over yourself. It's only a few clothes on the floor. Anyway, I work hard for a living, and just because I go out the odd Friday night for a drink and a bite to eat, if I get a date at the end of the night, so be it. I appreciate you have a very stressful job in the fast-moving consumer goods industry, but that's still no reason to hang your clothes on the floor. Anyway, a woman wouldn't touch you with a 40-foot barge pole. Why not? Because you keep wearing the same shirts for 4 and 5 days in a row. Anyway, if you did get a date, you'd be lucky enough. If you did get a date, you'd be like a dog chasing a car. You wouldn't know what to do with it if you get caught with it. You pick the clothes off the floor, you put them in the washing basket, and you go down to the kitchen and you see unwashed dishes in the sink, and it starts all over again. You left those dirty dishes in the sink? I did. Why? Because I was in a rush. Houston, I think Ray has a problem. This inner talk was driving me mad and making me sad until I discovered no talk. What's no talk, Ray? Well, that's the message I speak tonight. It's where you don't talk. In a word, it's called meditation. If you can meditate every morning and every evening, probably with a bit of journaling, the self-talk will dissipate, or as I prefer to say, shut up. You'll hear and understand yourself better, and those problems that you have will be resolved easily. Which will mean you'll save yourself thousands of euro in therapy. Therefore, you'll be able to afford a dishwasher to clean your dishes, a housekeeper to tidy your house, and if you have some spare change left over, you might do what I've done. Join a dating agency called Date, Mate, and Create. Oh yeah. I'm now confident that my dating prospects on the hand of real professionals. As far as my public speaking skills are concerned, well, they're improving, becoming more effective, and like my psychoanalyst, who definitely was not. Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ray. I think that tells us an awful lot about today's conversation. Our final speaker tonight, again, is somebody that we're very familiar with here in Hospice. He's left me with some lasting impressions of him in a penny, and it's one of those impressions I don't want to have for the rest of my life. I wonder what impressions he leave us with tonight. With a speech entitled Party Games, please welcome Tim O'Gara. Maybe these are the party games. Greg playing with Tim. What's more, please welcome Tim.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I start, I'd just like to say I'm absolutely delighted I don't live with Ray. Sounds like a total mess. Clothes everywhere and I'm talking to myself. And then to improve the situation, not talking at all. I might try and do a speech on that next year. There's huge possibilities. Last Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, we received this Christmas card from the Burke Kennedys who live in Loughgall. Inside it, there was a little invitation to their house for New Year's night. My wife Tash, and I am married, somebody asked me outside. My wife had said, I'm not going. That woman can't cook. She serves cheap, mediocre wine. And worst of all, she plays party games. We went on New Year's night. She was quite right about the wine. And there was only wine. The red was a Bulgarian bull's blood. The white was a dull, dry Italian type of stuff. The food was supposed to be a chicken curry. It was chicken curry-ish. It was served with very soggy rice, and soggy rice is not good. And a warm beetroot salad. Apparently it's festive in Romania. The dessert was summer berries. Pat was unsure which summer. No sooner was supper over than Amanda clapped her hands and said, and now my favourite part of the evening, the party games. Tonight we are going to play Mr. and Mrs. to find out which couple knows one another most intimately. Who are the closest couple here? My wife's face froze, wondering if there was anywhere she could escape. All the names were in a hat. The first name out of the hat was Kieran and Patricia. Pat was taken by Amanda's husband Gerard from the sitting room out to the kitchen, and I was asked random questions that were picked on another card. I have it here with me. The first question that I was asked: what washing detergent does Pat use? I said, if Pat was doing the washing, she would use Persil Automatic, but actually she's useless around the house. I do the washing myself, and I use a product from Lidl. I said it's more efficient, it's more effective, and it's more economical. I said it costs me about 7 cents a wash, and over a full year I find that I can save enough money for 5 bottles of a beautiful Italian Chianti. So the second question, Kieran, if we ask Pat, does she have a lot of clothes, what will she say? I have little doubt that she'll say she hasn't got a stitch. But I'd like to tell you that last year I had to build an extension to her wardrobe. I counted her items because I'm a project engineer. She had 197 individual hanging items. I don't even want to mention her shoes. I have a slight heart condition. I don't want to get excited. And your third question, Kieran. Do you actually know what your wife Pat is wearing tonight? I know she's in the kitchen, in detail. I certainly do. As some of you ladies will know, I have a huge interest in ladies' clothes. She's wearing her junior skirt. She wouldn't like me to mention that it's 8 years old, but it is her favorite. She's wearing a pale blue silk blouse that she bought in Milan when she was doing a shopping expedition for my daughter's wedding. And she's wearing navy tights and navy shoes. I think the shoes are the only cheap thing she's wearing. She told me she got them in Jimmy's shoes. If you're really looking for the detail, and I don't know if she'll mind me mentioning it, she is wearing navy lingerie. And she imports it from a small lingerie boutique in Boston called Barely There. And with that, Pat was brought in and the questions were repeated. Now, Pat, what washing detergent do you use? Ah, well, I don't actually do the washing. Kieran thinks he's more efficient, more effective, and more economical, and who am I to argue with him? He's a wonderful husband. And your second question, Pat. Would you say you have a lot of clothes? I have to be honest, girls, I haven't got a stitch. But I was hoping to go out to the sales in January and get a few bits and bobs. You know what I mean. And your last question, Pat. Do you think Kieran knows exactly, in detail, what you're wearing tonight? Oh, I'm pretty sure he does. He's very kinky. I did change 5 or 6 times, but I'm sure he told you exactly what I'm wearing. But he has a thing about lingerie, so he's probably mentioned that as well. And then I was put out into the kitchen with Amanda's husband, Gerard, and Pat was asked a few questions about me. The first question: does Kieran lie? And what's his most usual lie? Is everybody with the movement? Of course he lies. All men lie. I suppose his most common lie is, I just have one more pint before I come home from the golf club. And your second question: if Kieran had 3 wishes before he died, what do you think they would be? Oh, that's a hard one. Well, a game of golf, definitely. A gin and tonic. And a Swedish blonde. He's always fantasized about Swedish blondes. And your third question: do you know who was the first girl that Kieran ever kissed, and where did he kiss her? Oh, I know, all right. I think it was Irene Keeley from Wilson Road in Mount Mary. She's a bit of a wagon. I've never liked her. He still sees her every year. I don't know why. He probably kissed her in the Stella Mount Mary, but just knocked down. Well knocked down, I think. And with that, I was brought back in, and the questions were repeated. Now, Kieran, do you lie? And what is your most common lie? Of course I lie. I'm 47 years married, and you can't be 47 years married without a lot of lies, quite frankly. My most common lie would be, no, sweetheart, your bum doesn't. And your second question, Kieran: if you had 3 wishes before you died, what would they be? Well, a game of golf, definitely. A gin and tonic. Oh, and a Swedish bird. I've always fantasized about a Swedish bird. But logically, I think I'd finish with the gin and tonic. And your last question, Kieran: who was the first girl you ever kissed, and where did you kiss her? Oh, that was Irene Keeley. I still see her every year. She's a lovely girl. Well, she's my age now, but she's a lovely girl. She's president of Ross's Point Golf Club. She can sing, she can dance, she's amusing, she's a wonderful girl. I can't understand how my wife Pat doesn't really like her. Is that my last question? And where did I kiss her? I kissed her on a moonlight night on Ardemine Beach with Elvis Presley's sound from Joe's Cafe playing Love Me Tender in the background. I kissed her on the lips. In those days, you didn't have an option. There were 2 or 3 more rounds. In the end, we were declared the Mr. and Mrs. And it's well worth thinking about, right? Well worth thinking about. When we went home that night, Pat had much too much bull's blood in her system. And as we were getting into bed, She said I wasn't fair to the Burke Kennedys. She said, they're a lovely couple. I loved the bold blood. I loved winning the competition and winning the prize of going away for 2 or 3 nights. And I love you. I turned over to kiss her goodnight. I was sure I was going to get lucky. But she was fast asleep. Ladies and gentlemen.
Carol, thank you much more for sharing your tales of domestic violence. And that's the end of the speeches and all the music and all the wonderful entertainment we had tonight. I think it was fantastic. Already I'm looking forward to next year. So thank you all for coming. One more thing, don't forget to pay for the auction items, and there's wine for sale outside. Apparently there's still some left. They found it on your bed. All rocking. You better be quick, Sandra. I thank you very much.